A man sits in a crowded train in Berlin. Hundreds of people around him. No one speaks. A woman in London spends her birthday scrolling through old messages, hoping someone remembers. In Paris, a student eats dinner alone for the 5th night in a row. And across Europe, something strange is happening. People have never been more connected online, yet millions feel completely invisible. Not poor, not starving, just alone. And the scariest part? Most people don't even realize it's happening until it's already consumed their lives.
The loneliness crisis in Europe didn't begin with one dramatic moment. There was no collapse, no warning sirens, no headlines screaming that society was slowly pulling apart. It happened quietly, one closed cafe at a time, one cancelled family dinner, one friendship that slowly stopped replying. And at first, nobody noticed. Because modern loneliness doesn't look the way people imagine it. It doesn't always look like isolation. Sometimes it looks like success. A good salary, a modern apartment, a busy city life, and yet somehow every night still feels empty. That's what shocked researchers the most. In some of Europe's richest, safest, and most developed countries, loneliness is exploding, not only among the elderly, among young people too, especially young people. In cities like Stockholm, Amsterdam, Berlin, and London, millions now live alone. Entire apartment buildings filled with strangers who have never spoken to each other. People wake up, go to work, come home, repeat.
Days blend together so smoothly that weeks disappear without a meaningful conversation. And slowly, something inside them changes. Because humans were never designed for this kind of life. For thousands of years, survival depended on community, villages, families, neighbors, shared meals, shared struggles. People belonged somewhere. Now compare that to modern urban life. You can live beside someone for 5 years and never know their name. And this is where the story gets darker. Because loneliness isn't just emotional anymore. Researchers across Europe have linked chronic loneliness to anxiety, depression, heart disease, sleep disorders, and even early death. Some scientists compare its health impact to smoking. But despite that, people still treat loneliness like a personal weakness, as if admitting you're lonely means you failed socially. So millions stay silent, especially men. In the UK, one survey found huge numbers of men had no close friend they could call during a crisis. Not one. And when you really think about that, it's terrifying. Because modern life trains people to appear fine. Post the vacation photo. Reply with, "Doing great." Keep moving.
Meanwhile, entire emotional lives are collapsing in private. A 29-year-old office worker in Frankfurt described his routine like this. "I talk to people all day, but I don't feel known by anyone." That sentence captures the entire crisis. People are surrounded by interaction, but starving for connection. And social media made the illusion even stronger. At first, it felt revolutionary. Suddenly, everyone was connected instantly. But over time, something subtle happened. Conversations became shorter. Friendships became performative. Attention spans shattered. People stopped calling, stopped visiting.
stopped sitting together without checking a screen every few minutes anymore. Even moments of silence became uncomfortable. And yet, despite all this connection, people began feeling more emotionally abandoned than ever, especially after the pandemic. Lockdowns changed people psychologically. Many never fully returned. Some lost social confidence completely. Others became addicted to isolation without realizing it. Staying home became easier than risking awkwardness, rejection, or emotional vulnerability. And technology quietly adapted around that fear. Food delivery, remote work, streaming entertainment, online shopping. You can now survive for days without speaking to another human being in person. Convenient? Absolutely. Healthy? That's a different question.
In cities across Europe, psychologists started noticing a disturbing pattern. Young adults were reporting feelings once associated mainly with old age: emptiness, meaninglessness, emotional numbness. Some described their lives as emotionally flat. Nothing terrible happening, but nothing deeply human either. And strangely, the lonelier people became, the harder socializing felt. That's the cruel cycle nobody talks about. Loneliness creates withdrawal. Withdrawal creates more loneliness. Then eventually, even simple interactions start feeling exhausting. A text goes unanswered. An invitation gets delayed. A friendship fades quietly. No argument, no dramatic ending, just distance. And one day, people realize they have nobody left they can truly open up to. But here's where the story takes an unexpected turn. Because Europe's loneliness crisis isn't only about technology. It's also about the way modern society redefined success. For decades, independence became the ideal. Move out early, be self-sufficient, need nobody. And in many ways, that freedom was empowering. But somewhere along the way, dependence became shameful. Needing people started sounding weak, even though humans are deeply emotional, social creatures. People began building lives optimized for efficiency instead of belonging. Fast transportation, fast careers, fast communication. But emotionally, everything slowed down. Real connection takes time. Long dinners, late-night conversations, shared memories. None of those fit neatly into productivity culture. So relationships slowly became secondary. And loneliness filled the empty space. You can actually see this physically in some European cities. Tiny apartments, silent public transport, headphones everywhere. Thousands of people moving beside each other like ghosts. And the scariest part is how normal it feels now. There's a moment many lonely people describe. You're surrounded by people, but feel emotionally unreachable, like there's glass between you and everyone else. You laugh, you work, you function. But inside, something feels disconnected from the world. That feeling has become disturbingly common, especially among Gen Z. One study after another keeps revealing the same contradiction. This generation is the most digitally connected in history, and one of the loneliest. Young people today can message hundreds instantly, but many struggle with face-to-face intimacy, eye contact, deep conversation, emotional openness.
Those skills weaken when most interaction happens through screens, and dating apps intensified it further. People became profiles, options, disposable. Connection turned into endless evaluation. Swipe, match, ghost, repeat. Some people spend years trapped in that cycle, always searching, rarely bonding. But loneliness doesn't only destroy relationships. Eventually, it changes identity itself. When people feel unseen long enough, they begin questioning their value. Am I forgettable? Do I matter to anyone? Would anyone notice if I disappeared?
Those thoughts become incredibly dangerous when left unspoken, and yet millions quietly carry them every day. But then, something surprising started happening. In parts of Europe, people began fighting back against loneliness in small, almost invisible ways. Not through massive government programs, through human moments. Community dinners in Italy, phone-free cafes in the Netherlands, neighbourhood events in Denmark, young people creating walking clubs in London just to talk to strangers. Tiny acts of reconnection. Because people are starting to realise something modern society forgot. A meaningful life is not built only through achievement. It's built through belonging, through feeling recognised, missed, welcomed. A woman in Barcelona described joining a local cooking group after months of isolation. At first, she almost didn't go. She said she stood outside the building for 10 minutes debating whether to leave. But eventually she walked in. By the end of the night, someone hugged her goodbye, and she cried on the train home. Not because something tragic happened, because nobody had touched her affectionately in months. That's how deep this crisis runs. People aren't only starving for conversation. They're starving for warmth, attention, presence. For proof, they exist emotionally in someone else's world. And maybe that's the hidden truth behind Europe's loneliness crisis. This was never just about being alone. It was about becoming emotionally disconnected in a world that never stops moving. A world where everyone appears busy, but many secretly feel unseen. And the tragedy is that loneliness hides itself so well. The most isolated people often look completely normal. They go to work, pay bills, smile politely, then go home to silence. But there's another side to this story, because loneliness can also become a turning point. Sometimes people only realize what truly matters after feeling the absence of it. Across Europe, many are slowly rediscovering things previous generations took for granted. Shared meals, local communities, friendship without agenda, time without screens. Not because it's trendy, because emotionally, people are exhausted. They want something real again. And maybe that's why this crisis matters far beyond Europe. Because what's happening there is beginning to happen everywhere. The modern world promised unlimited connection. But human beings were never built for endless digital proximity without emotional closeness. We don't just need information. We need each other. And maybe the future won't belong to the people with the biggest audiences or the busiest lives, but to the people who still know how to truly connect. Because in the end, the scariest kind of loneliness is not being physically alone. It's feeling invisible in a world full of people.
And right now, millions know exactly what that feels like.